I think I'll move on to weddings now. We have sort of moved on to weddings. Again, I'm just going to give you the flavour of some of the weddings I've conducted and some of the things that have happened. I mean, I had some wonderful weddings and some not so wonderful ones. Wonderful romantic ones in Ravello, twice. The second one covered by Hello magazine, because that involved the wedding of Erin Bogue, who you all know, of course, from Strictly Come Dancing. No, not much watched here. This is not a typical Strictly Come Dancing audience, I'm afraid. So lost on most of you. Anyway, she partners Anton Dubec, who's currently partnering Anne Widdicombe. But that's enough. So I have had one Hello magazine wedding, which happened to be in Ravello, which is a fabulous place. And I've done some in Provence and various bits of France. I speak French, so I've done ceremonies in sort of French and English and franglais. And they're great fun. And there was a lovely one, which I'll quote from briefly, on Richmond Hill in December, which was a surprise choice of venue to me. But the weather was kind enough. The sun didn't shine, but it didn't rain. And although we all stood on Richmond Hill in our wellies, we went down for a delicious lunch at Petersham Nurseries afterwards. It was lovely. And the young woman sang quite beautifully on Richmond Hill with no accompaniment. Lovely. Then I've had some weddings that I've not enjoyed because and where I didn't feel I was able to perform my role properly, because you get wedding planners and you get big productions, and the person who is actually conducting the wedding is not really, is a sort of bit part player, you know, and you're not really included in the preparations, you're not really included in the whole choreography of the event. And if you're not careful, I mean, in one at a huge sort of country house on the edge of Barnet, this young couple who were Lebanese. One was Christian, one was Muslim in origin, but neither of them were practicing. And it was terribly difficult. I was hardly allowed to say anything. One was divorced. There were all sorts of no-go areas. It was terribly. I just had to say, you know, wasn't their love a wonderful thing? Was really all they wanted me to say. And so I couldn't do. I mean, what I normally try to do with a wedding is, first of all, sort of involve the audience, and I'll take you through this. But these are the things I want to do when I'm conducting a wedding: is involve the audience, make everybody feel gripped by the occasion, make everybody identify with the couple. Then I tell the story, because it's usually the case that some people don't know half the story. They know one half of the couple, they don't know the other. They don't know where the man comes from, you know, and where did they meet and all that. So I like to tell that story of how they got together, and then why they're getting married, how they decided to get married, and there are usually some quite funny and, you know, sweet stories and coincidences to tell along the way, and so you get a bit of laughter and fun and sense of this budding romance. And then I like to talk about their complementary characters and how they work together, so that by the time we come to the vows, people are thinking, oh, how marvellous, you know, Alice, and how lovely that they met in that way, and isn't that sweet about, you know, him doing the sweeping and all that. So that when they come to do the vows, everybody's really rooting for them, and it's a terrific sort of time. I say, you know, pronounce them husband and wife, and everybody cheers, and that's how I hope it will go. And at this thing with the Lebanese couple who didn't really want to tell me anything, when they told me sort of, well, actually, you know, we met in the camera, we'd met before when she was married, but we don't want to talk about that. And so, you know, there were all these no-go areas, I say, and I had a very limited script. And then it was so arranged that I actually couldn't see half the audience. On the step, the couple were kind of in the, were kind of well lit and so on, but I was behind them. I couldn't see half the audience, and so it was awful. But it was kind of too late for me to make a fuss, and I didn't want to make a fuss. It wasn't about me, but I mean, one elementary thing about conducting a ceremony is you need to be able to make eye contact with the audience. You need to be able to see people, and I just wasn't sort of written into the scheme, and that is what does tend to happen if you are at the mercy of wedding planners. I mean, there was another one with a nice couple who I got on very well with, and we had a brief rehearsal at the V&A. Now, he was a trader who'd made a lot of money, and they shelled out a huge sum to hire the V&A on a Saturday, the ground floor, and so all the exhibits were kind of covered, and there was, where the normal reception area was a bar, and it was an amazing number, and huge expense. But when I went in to where the ceremony was conducted, there was just one sort of, or maybe two, really searing spotlights on the stage that I could hardly see. And I said, can't you turn those down? I mean, the couple will be blinded, apart from anything else. And they sort of said, oh, but they're going to look great. And, yes. And then they sort of turned it down. I said, but there's no light here. I can't read my script. So I was kind of really like this. And then people told me afterwards they couldn't hear because the acoustics were bad. And I was just so gutted that, the ceremony, which obviously was the bit I was responsible for, was, not what it should have been, despite all this money they'd spent. So, beware wedding planners is the thing I kind of learned from that. I've had some slightly weird, I had one slightly weird wedding, a couple who were really called, Janice and Ron or something, but they called themselves Viog and Premlock because they were followers of the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, but I guess that particular outfit didn't have any wedding celebrants in London, so they went for a humanist. And people do come to a humanist as a compromise. And I don't mind doing it as a compromise. I mean, what we do is sort of, I feel it's universal, and I'm not too fussy in that way. I mean, I think we'd vary. Some people would say, no, I can't do that. But I wasn't asked to say anything. I wasn't asked to speak any claptrap. It was all perfectly normal. It was a perfectly normal sort of wedding. It's just that they were called Viog and Premlock. They did have some slightly odd sort of beliefs and customs, to which we were not exposed on the day in question. So it was fine. I'll tell you about my first wedding, which was actually a gay wedding. And that, first and last, I haven't done one since, which is weird, but I think it's because civil ceremonies came in, and suddenly everybody thought, well, we'd go to the town hall and we'd get it done there. And I think BHA, BHA has slightly lost out with gay. We used to call them commitment ceremonies because they weren't called weddings. Anyway, I had Paul and Daniel was the first, so it's kind of set the tone for me, and I'll just take you through a few little extracts from that because I usually applied it again to heterosexual couples. But Paul and Daniel, he's Irish and very talented chap who works for Matthew Freud, the PR guy, and his other half is called Daniel, a Frenchman, a banker. And my wife was sitting there, played a blinder because she helped to sort of comfort Paul's Catholic parents, who A, didn't know their son was gay until he announced it, and B, you know, weren't terribly happy with the whole ceremony thing. It wasn't quite what they had in mind. So, so that was interesting. Anyway, I kind of start by putting everybody in the picture, and then I talk about making a commitment, about taking this big step, about volunteering to sacrifice a certain amount of individual freedom in the hope of creating something lasting together. And I say, as Daniel and Paul prepare to take that step, they seek no higher authority than their friends and family to endorse their union and send them on their way. And this is where I involve everybody. I say you all have a special role in their lives and may be called upon for support and company in the years ahead. The fact that you will have been here today will make your bond with them stronger and richer in the years to come. As a token of that, Paul and Daniel would like the rings they're about to exchange to pass amongst you beforehand. And this is something that I can't remember if Paul or Daniel suggested. And I was a bit sceptical about it to start with, but it worked very well. It's rather a nice ritual, I think, that you take the rings and they are passed up and down one side and then back up the other. And they've not disappeared yet. So that works well, and they come back and they're sort of loaded with everybody's good wishes. And then when I came to Paul and Daniel's vows, I thought you might like to hear them because they're different. A lot of vows are traditional. A lot of heterosexual couples like perfectly traditional vows, which are not, of course, particularly religious in content. But Paul and Daniel wanted something slightly different. So I asked them various things. I'll just run through this. Paul and Daniel, do you swear in front of your friends and family that you love and respect each other and will try to preserve that feeling in the years ahead? We do. Daniel and Paul, do you promise to be honest and open with each other in all the things that matter? We do. Paul and Daniel, do you promise to try to be tolerant of one another, to remember your differences and each allow the other the freedom to be himself? We do. Daniel and Paul, do you affirm that you place a special value on the love and support of your families and that you will be as true and considerate towards them as you can be? We do. I think that was particularly thought of with Paul's Irish Catholic parents in mind. But it's, you know, these were written by them and me. You know, we had several meetings and suggested things, and this went through several drafts. So then, Paul and Daniel, do you affirm to the entire company that you intend to stay together and build your life together? We do. Now they each take a ring, place it on the other's finger, and repeat after me their three pledges. I love you, I trust you, I will be there for you. And that was lovely. That was my first, we called it a commitment, not an affirmation. That's what we were calling it then. It was about 7 years ago. And as I say, I'm sorry that I've not had a gay ceremony to perform since then.